Hello guys, I hope you all doing good. Welcome to this new video. Today we are going to solve a problem from the machine coding round. This is the first problem from the machine coding round in this series. I hope you will like it, and going forward we will have multiple challenges that you can expect in machine coding rounds that I'll be solving live. So the first problem that we have here is we have to create an auto suggestion box in vanilla.js. For example, if you have seen Google, so if I click on the Google, you see this, that if I type something, we get number of suggestions in this drop down. Also, if I click or if I put the input on the focus, then also this suggestion box is visible. So we are going to create a similar thing. The question read as, we have to create an auto suggestion box in vanilla.js. Create a suggestion area bottom to the input box that shows the suggestion list. The list is visible when the input box is in focus or when user types. In both the cases, it hides when the input box is blurred. So if you click outside, or if the input box goes out of the focus or it is blurred, the suggestion box will hide. We have get suggestion function over here. This is a function that will mimic a mock API server. So whatever text you type, right, it will return a random text around that with a latency of 0 to 200 millisecond. That is a delay between 0 and 200 millisecond. It will return a promise. That promise will resolve with either no data or at max 4 suggestions. Also, the promise can fail. I mean, the API call can fail. So it will mimic as a mock API server. The failing, the empty data, the result, it depends on randomness. So we cannot predict when it will fail. We'll have to handle all the cases. When a suggestion is clicked, like over here, if any suggestion is clicked, for example, if any suggestion is clicked, so we have to populate the input box with that suggestion. Also, we have to keep the input box in focus after click. So the only edge case over here is that is different from the Google is when we click on any of the suggestion that has been populated, we have to populate the input box with that value that has been clicked and bring the input box in focus. So let's start coding this. You can expect a machine coding interview for around 1 hour to 1.5 hours, that is 60 or 90 minutes, depending upon your experience. If you are interviewing for ST2 or ST3 roles, the time will be around 90 minutes because they will ask you to cover many edge cases. For ST1, usually the cases are very less, and it is approx time is around 60 minutes, in which you will be given around 45 to 15 minutes to do the coding and implement and handle all the edge cases, and the remaining 10 to 15 minutes will be for the follow-up questions or any theoretical questions that interviewer can ask you. So let's do the first thing. Let me create an input box over here. Let me drag this section, close the console. Here, let's say I have a main area. The main area is our wrapper that will hold the input. So input type equals to search. So you can have either search type or input type text depending upon your requirement or how you are trying to program the application. And then I'm providing an ID using which I'll access the element and then get its value and do other functional parts. And here I'm going to have a placeholder as well that will say enter your query. Below this, I'm going to have a division. I'm creating a div. You can create any type of element, and to this I'll give the ID suggestion area. So let's run this and see if the suggestion box is displayed or not. So it is being displayed. Let's add certain style to the suggestion box. So to the main area, I'm going to make it width 500 pixel and margin 0 auto, so that it is center aligned, or I can have it 10 pixel from the top and then auto, so that the main area is center aligned. And then inside that, the suggestion area that we have, will align this. So we'll add a border of 1 pixel solid red color to demonstrate how just for the look and feel and for the demonstration purpose, that how the suggestion area is, where it is aligned. And then I'll add a margin to this also of 10 pixel. So let's run this and see if the input and the suggestion area is visible. So yeah, input is also visible and suggestion area is also visible. Let add some style to the input area as well. So search, and let me add some padding to it, maybe 10 pixel, and I'll make it full width. So width is 100% of its parent. And to the suggestion area, I'm going to add minimum height of 100 pixel and a padding of 5 pixel. And if I run this, so minimum height is not being assigned. I think height should be applicable. Let's see. So height is also not assigned. Position relative. Let's see why it's not taking the height in the inspect. So during the machine coding round, you can always inspect. That's because the spelling was wrong. Sorry, my bad. So you can during the interviews for the machine coding round, you can always inspect and you can check the elements. That's you have that liberty that you can do. Now by default, we will have to hide the suggestion area, and it will only be visible when the input is in focus. So let's add this property display none, and we'll hide the suggestion area. So our styling is done. Now let's start handling or implementing things. So first thing is, we have placed the suggestion area below to the input box, that is at the bottom. The second thing is, the list is visible when the input box is in focus or when user types. So in both the cases, we have to show the input area, sorry, the suggestion area. So let me create a function over here, a self-invoking function. It's always better that you wrap your logic inside a function, so that your script does not conflict with any other script that is running in the browser, in case you want to use this script anywhere. So it's always advisable that we should wrap this logic inside a function, because in JavaScript before ES6, when let and const was introduced and block scoping was introduced, everything was function scope. So we always try to write the code inside a function. Here I've created a self-invoking function that will be created and invoked when the script runs. Inside this, I'm going to take the input first. So document dot get element by ID, and that is search. So this will give me the input, and then second is the suggestion area. So suggestion area, document dot get element by ID, suggestion area. Now when the input goes in focus, we have to make the suggestion area visible. So let's attach that event to the input. So input dot add event listener, and when the focus event happens, we have to show the suggestion area. So let me create a function on focus, and inside here, when the focus event is triggered on the input, we'll call this on focus, and then inside the focus what I'll do is the suggestion area, I'll update its style of display to make it block. So whenever the input becomes in focus, the on focus function will be invoked, and then inside that we'll display or we'll change the property of suggestion area and we'll make it display block. So let's try that. See, if I click on the focus, our input area is getting visible. Now when I click outside, I have to hide the suggestion area. So let's add that event as well. So const on blur suggestion area dot style dot display equals to none, and when input dot add event listener, and here I'll add the event blur and then say on blur. So when the input goes out of focus or it is blurred, our suggestion area should hide. So when I click on it, it's visible. When I click outside, the suggestion area is being hidden. So we have handled two cases. One is when the input is in focus, the suggestion area should be visible, and then second is when we are going out of focus, then we have to hide the suggestion area. Now in the suggestion area, we are going to have our suggestions. So in that case, if I click on the suggestion, then that suggestion has to be populated in the input box. So if I click on that, then also the suggestion area should be hidden. So if I click somewhere, the suggestion area is hiding, but we have to get its value and populate in the input box. So we'll see later how we can do, but the mechanism is working fine. So let's say even if you click on the suggestion area, it is being hidden because the input box is getting out of focus. Now whenever you type something in the input area, you have to make the API call and you have to show the suggestion in the suggestion list. So for that, I am going to use the key up event. So as you are aware, key press is a formation of two events. One is key up, another is key down. So the moment I press a key, that is key down, and if I release the key, that is key up. So our suggestion API call should be triggered as either we do key press or we have left the key. So I am going to do it on key up event. You can handle it on key press event also, but you need to make sure that things are working fine. So let me create the onChange function over here, and here the onChange function will take the input event or the change event on the key. So basically the event object, and let's print e dot target dot value where the event was triggered, and we will take its value and we'll print it because we have to use this value to make the API call. So let me run this again. I'll go to console. Let me drag this little bit up, and let's say if I type something, input dot add event, sorry, the spelling is long, listener. Let me clear this. and run again. So let's say if I'm typing something, you see the moment I type something, it is being printed. So I'm getting the data as I'm performing the action. Now I can use this to make the API call and get the result. So let me clear this and let's close the console, and here I'm going to use this get suggestions function to get the data. So let me create a helper function over here, const process data, and to this I'll pass the value. So whatever value I receive in this on change event, the value of the search box, I'll pass it this to process data, and inside the process data we'll do all our processing. So here I've created a async function, and then inside the try catch block I'm going to handle the promises. Now it is important to wrap in the try catch block because as I explained, right, the get suggestion function can fail randomly. So it's very important for us to handle the API calls that are failing so that our UI does not break. Now inside this, I'm going to take the response and I'm going to await the get suggestions and I'll pass the value to it. Now the base, there is one thing over here, we have to add a base check. So let's say if you are erasing everything in the search box, that means the value is empty, it's an empty string. So in that case we don't have to make a API call because there is nothing that has been added. So what we'll do is we'll add a base case if not value. So in case there is any falsy value for the value that we are receiving, that is either it is empty string, it is undefined, null. So in that case what we'll do is there will be no API call and we don't have to do any processing. So I'll just return. So the function will terminate here itself. There won't be any further process that will happen. Now in the response we are going to get the suggestion list, and let's print the suggestion and see the value of it. And let me call this process data. So let me get this value by destructuring in a variable, and here we'll say that e.target, and from that we are getting the value and we'll pass that to process data. And then inside the process data it will do the base check. If the value is empty or there is no data, then we have to return and terminate. Now there is another check in the base case, that is if there is no value, then we have to empty the suggestion area. There should not be any suggestion list present over there because we are not going to make a API call that will populate, and if it is already populate we have to empty that. So what we'll do is we'll say that suggestion area dot inner HTML equals to empty text. So we are going to clear it. We are going to remove everything inside the suggestion area. Let's run this. Let me drag this up. So run this again. Now if I type something, you see that we are getting multiple suggestions. So depending upon the response we receive, we have to populate this response inside the suggestion area. So we are going to receive an array of values in the response. So let me create here, I'll just add error to highlight error while making network call, and to that I'll pass the error object as it is. And here let me create an list. So I'm going to use unordered list to store the suggestions. So document dot create element ul. Now it is always advisable that you create single element and do all the DOM related changes or add all the DOM related changes to that element, and then at the end, after the processing is complete, all actions, that all changes that you wanted to do has been done, then add that element to the actual DOM, so that the amount of re-rendering and repaint that DOM has to go through should be minimum. This is one of the performance issue that we have to take in mind, and depending upon how you write the code, how you consider things while implementing any feature or creating any application, showcases your knowledge, and it really matters during the interviews as you grow senior. So you have to keep those things in mind. Now here I can either create a fragment or I can create any element, and inside that element I'll do all the processing, and then finally I'll add the element to the suggestion area. So rather than creating a fragment, I have created a UL, a list, and then if response dot length. So one condition or one outcome of the get suggestion is we can receive empty values as well in the array. So if the response length or we get suggestions, then only I'm going to create a UL element, and inside here I'm going to iterate all the suggestions, either iterate or map, you can do anything, and here I'll create li's list items document dot create element li, and to these list items dot inner text or inner content you can set as the suggestion that you have received, and then at the end you have to add this append child to the list. So you have to add the list items to the list, and finally once your processing or your suggestions are created, you have to add this list to the suggestion area. So in the suggestion area I'm going to append the child, that is the list. So it should do the work. Now let me run this again. Let me drag this up. If I type something, you see that we are getting the list of values. But the thing over here is, as I'm typing, the previous list is not getting removed. I mean, in the base condition we had said, right, that if the value is empty, then we have to remove everything from the suggestion area. But if the value is not empty, then the suggestion area data persists. I mean, it is not getting cleared. So what I'll do is, rather than adding that in the if condition, I'll add it at the top, that so that whenever this process data function is invoked, it will always clear the suggestion area. Now let me run this again. Now if you see, if I type, so we are able to see the data properly. If I clear this, so you see that everything from the suggestion area is removed. If I type again, you see that we are getting the output or the suggestions. Now here the suggestions, there is some gap. So let's see what's happening, why there is a gap between the list. The gap was because the inner HTML was not getting cleared on time, and we were getting two UL or two list appended over here. Now to fix that, what I'll do is I'll just copy the inner HTML where we are resetting or emptying that, and we'll do it before we are appending any value in the list as well. So this will help us to clear the list first and then append any value to that. So see, now things are working fine. Now if I click on any of this suggestion, then that value has to be populated in the input box, and input box should remain in focus. So let's do that. Before adding a click event on this, what I'll do is, let's assign some CSS. So I'll just style dot cursor equals to pointer. We'll just add a cursor to the list items so that we are aware that they are being clicked. So see, we are able to see the cursor over here. Now when I click on this, any of these values, it should be populated to the input box. Now what you can do is, either you can assign the on click event to these li items, or rather than handling the on click event for each of this item because they are iterating in the loop, what we can do is, we are going to do something much better. So on the suggestion area, I'm going to attach an event listener click, and here I'm going to handle the click event. Now let me create this const on click, and then I'll get the event type, and to this I'll just go in add a log. So e dot target dot inner text or inner content, so that it will give us whatever the value is on the li element we have clicked. Now on the suggestion area, we have added the click event. If I run this again, let me open the console, clear this. If I type something, you see that we get a suggestion, and if I click on any of those suggestions, nothing is happening. That is because the suggestion area is getting hidden. We are not able to make the click event. So what we'll do is, first thing is, we'll have to fix this blur. So when the input is getting out of focus, we are hiding this suggestion area. So this event is firing before the click event. That's why we are not able to click on any of these suggestions. So I'm going to remove this blur, and rather what I'll do is, I'm going to attach a click event on the window. That's because on the window, if we click anywhere, that suggestion area has to be hidden, except for when we are clicking in the input area or on the suggestion area. So on blur event, inside the on blur, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to add a condition. If e dot target equals to input, or e dot target equals to suggestion area, then we have to do nothing. Otherwise you have to hide the suggestion area. So that's the condition I have added. I have removed the blur, and rather I have attached a click event on the window that will listen to the click event, and it will hide the suggestion box if we have clicked anywhere on the window except for the input area or the suggestion box. So now if you see, if I am clicking on the input area or on the suggestion box is not hiding. But if I click anywhere outside, the suggestion box will hide. So one fix we have done. The second fix is, let me remove this, and if I type something, and if I click on any of this value, that value we have to take and print in the console log. So now the inner content, it is returning undefined because when we clicked on the suggestion area, the event bubbled up by default. So it was not handling the capture. The event was only propagated on the suggestion area, and because suggestion area had nothing, so it has returned undefined. Now rather what we are going to do is we are going to pass the flag true. So true will enable the capturing. Capturing as in the event will go down to all the elements in the suggestion area, and whichever element we have clicked, we are going to get its text. Let me change that to inner text and let's try again. So if I click, you see that we are getting the value of the element that we have clicked on. If I click somewhere else, we'll get all the text because we have clicked on the suggestion area. Now we have attached a event that will capture the click on any of the element. So in the click event also, we are going to add a condition if e dot target dot is suggestion area, we have to do nothing. That means if we have not clicked on any of the li elements, we want to do nothing. Otherwise we are going to print the inner text. So let me run this again. If I type something, if I click on that, we are getting the text that has been clicked on. If I click somewhere else, nothing happens. Only if I click on the text, we are going to get its value. Now this value has to be populated to the input area, and input area has to be brought in focus. So that's the final stage. So let's do that. Font text, we got that. Now let's say input dot value equals to text and then input dot focus. So this will bring the input in focus. Let's run this again. Let me type something. We got the text. If I click on that, the input area is populated with the text that I've clicked on or the suggestion that I've clicked on, and it has been brought in focus. So that's it. We have implemented all the features. This I have done in Vanilla.js. In the next video, we'll try to implement the same in React.js. I hope you have learned something new today. Thank you for your time.